What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and host HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are recapping everything that went down in week 2. And also, we're going to look ahead to week 3. HBCU football is rolling. A lot of interesting storylines going into week 3. I got Arielle in the building. Arielle, how you doing today?
I want people to see the old Aggie shirt of what we used to be great. It's been a very wild weekend. I can say that for the week.
Yeah, so for the radio podcast audience, she has a classic shirt for the Aggie Eagle Classic. The A&T wants to reclaim those days for sure. I'm already knowing with what went down because North Carolina Central looking really nice. Arielle, they won 30-16 in the Aggie Eagle Classic. Davius Richard had a really good game. Didn't throw a passing touchdown, but he rushed for 2 touchdowns. So I got to get your breakdown on that. That was your game of the week. You're in Aggie. So let's go on and pop it off. So what did you think about the Aggie Eagle Classic?
It was absolutely better than last year's. Last year's was turning more into a blowout than this time, but just shutting A&T out from the third and fourth quarter, not being able to score points based on the defense and the forced turnovers that were put against us by Central. Obviously, it was a great game. It was in our house at Truist Stadium, so I thought that would have brought us a little bit of luck. But it's the same thing with Yeager, our quarterback, that's not thinking these plays through, but also just Central having a really tough defense and having man coverage just on point. I just have to say that the defense of Central is one of the most impressive and one of the most refreshing things that I have ever seen. Just the speed and the ability not to get tired as quickly, but to also get the other team off the field so that way your quarterback, who is still one of those most amazing HBCU quarterbacks that I have seen in a very, very long time, get on the field. And like you said, of course, he didn't have any passing touchdowns by himself, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns, which I think really confused, but also was the kryptonite to A&T because A&T doesn't have a dual threat quarterback, nor are they used to seeing that since they had Lamar. So Davius Richards posed as a very, very good obstacle, but also a very, very good opponent against A&T. And I have to give Central their credit because when it was time to get down and dirty, we were going into halftime 17-16. They came right back up and showed A&T why they deserve these rights as a classic. It is disappointing to see that. And I think A&T did come back from few of those struggles of passing and just making sure they are able to see their players. But at this point, Central just outplayed us. It was a very, very good game. But I'm disappointed to see my Aggies this way, going back-to-back years without winning a classic. And I understand that this is just a moment in time where they're still trying to get their feet wet, but also figure out where they stand in their new conference. But hopefully we don't do this a third time in the row because the funeral that Central had for us is starting to sound better and better each year. I think they got over that little bad luck stuff and now they're on the revenge path. But this is only going to set up Central way, way better, except until they get to this weekend. I think they might experience their first loss. But Central, I don't see them going downhill anytime from here.
Yeah, so I totally get it. I didn't get a chance to watch the game because I was locked into Southern versus Jackson State, but I think that North Carolina Central is as advertised. I honestly think they might have gotten better, especially with Davius Richard having another year under his belt. I think him growing as a player and definitely him trying to get, some draft looks and get drafted and get into the NFL. I think that, he needs these signature wins. And I know that he didn't have a passing touchdown, but if you look at his stats, I mean, you got to get the ball down the field somehow. He's not like rushing for 85, 60, 70 yards, so, and at least not every play. So you got to get that ball down the field to get in position to even score, to get 30 points. So I think that's on him. So, I want to see A&T do a little bit better. Of course, they're playing Elon, this weekend. So I definitely want to see them get better. I want to see them get back to the Aggies that we've seen before. But let's talk about the Pete Richardson Classic, Jackson State versus Southern. Hated rivals. Like when I tell you HBCU beef doesn't get real until you look at swag beefs on Twitter, on Facebook, in person, like Fort Valley, Albany State ain't nothing like this. All right, we just throw, little jokes at each other, but it ain't nothing like this. Like Southern and Jackson State, it's like a real deal, old school college football hate. And Jackson State got the win. Arielle, you and I both predicted that they would win, but I do want to say this. I said on last week that Jackson State was going to win, and it was going to be by 2 touchdowns. You were like, Randall, 2 touchdowns? I was correct. Jackson State won 27-14, 2 touchdowns. And the reason why I knew they were going to win by 2 touchdowns is what I saw against Alabama State. I think Southern has an uphill battle really getting their offense up to snuff. I think that what I'm looking at right now, and this is honest, just telling the truth, I'm not trying to be provocative. They have one of the worst offenses in the SWAC. They have one of the worst offenses in the SWAC. And I just think at this point, it's not going to get better. They're playing FAMU really soon. You know, they're playing other teams. They have high-powered offenses that we're really seeing move the ball down the field. They have to play Grambling in the Bayou Classic, and Miles Crawley has been doing amazing. Crawley had a great game against LSU. So I just think that if we're going tit for tat as far as offense, I don't think that Southern is really going to keep up with the pace. Harold Blood, I want to see more from him. It seems as if he's not the answer. A lot of folks want to see some other talent at that quarterback position because Bashawn McCray just simply was not cutting it. Like he was a good rushing quarterback, but throwing the ball, he didn't do all that great. Harold Blood seems like a more pure passer. And I think he has talent. I think he has intangibles. I think he is a quality quarterback, but something's not hitting. I don't know if it's the play call in by Coach Eric Dooley. I don't know if it's the plays that are being called. I don't know if he's not seeing the defense the right way. I really don't know what's going on with Harold Blood because I think that he is talented. He had some really impressive throws, some really impressive plays, especially in that first half. But he threw 2 interceptions. So it was an okay game. He threw 2 interceptions that really stalled drives. So I think, with Harold Blood, I'm not going to say, hey, get him out of there. But I honestly think that something does need to change at the very least in the play calling to see what can be done more to really get more out of Harold Blood. So Herb Mulligan, Arielle, we talked about him a couple weeks ago after that South Carolina State victory where he dominated and had that big opening touchdown run that put Jackson State on the board for the first time in the game and the season in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. Herb Mulligan is going to continue to be the star. And honestly, when you look at that Jackson State running back room, they are legit. And I think that they're going to power that offense. Of course, we talk about Shedeur Sanders. He's doing great at Colorado. He was at Jackson State last year. And that offense went where Shedeur Sanders went. In that Celebration Bowl in 2021 against South Carolina State, Shedeur didn't have a great game. So they didn't win. You look at the 2022 Celebration Bowl, Shedeur had a better game. They were in contention to win. Jason Brown, ever since the MEAC SWAC Challenge, he's not been great. He didn't throw for 300 yards against FAMU. He didn't throw 300 yards this game. He was a serviceable game manager, it seemed like. He made the throws he needed to make. He handed off the ball to Herb Mulligan. He handed off the ball to the other running backs, and they were able to make it happen and help the team get down the field. But Jackson State's defense, once again, is as advertised, and I honestly believe that's going to be a bright spot as well. So like I said, Arielle, we both picked Jackson State to win. I picked Jackson State by 2 touchdowns, and the reason why is because I just personally believe T.C. Taylor is a good coach, and I think this game showed that level of coaching because I think coaching is more than X's and O's. I think that's very important and more important than a lot of folks, really give credit to. But I think that in general is also resolve. You had that great win against South Carolina State, and folks are saying, hey, look at them. They're back. They're the guys. Deion who? Then you go to FAMU and you get dominated. So now you're playing against Southern, a heated rival that's trying to get a win back after they lost to Alabama State. And now it's like, hey, how are you going to respond? And I think the testament to the coaching is keeping your team motivated, putting them in situations where they can win and they can be successful. And like I said, we've seen it with T.C. Taylor as an offensive coordinator, as an assistant coach. We've seen that from him in his history, how he develops his players. So I think that that's what we're seeing right now. And Southern's offense is going to really struggle this year unless they make some changes.
No, I completely agree with everything you're saying. And it's kind of funny that I'm very happy that Jackson State in this game got back to the basics, now being 1-1, and now Southern is 0-2, something that we should really be worried about. But Jackson State showed in this past Richardson Classic game that they are still the dominating force that you guys had saw when we had that MEAC SWAC Challenge. It was a complete punch to the chest and just a stake to the heart when we saw them last week playing FAMU, that this was not the same team that we have saw coming out and opening season. And I think it was just jitters and trying. I think a lot of Jackson State players, and not necessarily TC Taylor, but maybe a little bit in his head, like this team has to be perfect because of what happened last year. And I think this was the perfect game against Southern to show that if we stick to our basics, if we remember our fundamentals, then we can win this game. But also, like you said, just having a deep backfield, having a wide spread of running backs that you can choose from, and running backs that are not just scoring first downs on play just every 10 yards. You have these running backs are scoring 20, 30. You had a 67-yard touchdown from a running back on Jackson State early in the game, and then you had a 75-yard touchdown coming from another running back to close that game and shut them out 27-14. So you look at this, and no matter where you go at Jackson State, whether the passing game is going to be great, or rather we get to see Brown use his legs or make those decisive decisions, whatever happens, we know that they are going to be safe, and this is going to pose a challenge but we can mostly say when they reach the Celebration Bowl again at the end of this year. I think this past performance was perfect, and I hope that they stay this way. But on the other hand, a Southern going 0-2, when you look at the SWAC, there doesn't seem to be competition at all. And I know it's early in the season. I know we're only on week 3, but most of these teams are either 1-1 and they're 0-2. And I don't know if it's a scheduling thing. I don't know if it's the colleges that they're playing, but none of them seem to have that kind of discipline or that kind of bounce back that Jackson State is having, besides maybe FAMU. Just the SWAC in total they do have great players, and we've been seeing great games, but it just seems a lack or not much pushback to be like, hey, we need to prepare for the next team that we're playing, especially when you're going to play teams like Jackson State and FAMU, who are really good this year, who have been battling really good teams. It seems like, especially with Southern, there's not going to be as much competition, which we may see a weaker SWAC this year, which I could be wrong, and I'm not opposed to that, but I think just as in general, I don't think there's any competition that's really being presented. It's either Jackson State or FAMU or bust. We don't have any other options, especially after this weekend. So I think Southern, how you broke it down and analyzed it so beautifully and correctly, especially with your on point 2 touchdown score. I think there's a lot of things that they need to go back and reconfigure, because right now the SWAC doesn't have dominant teams to me besides Jackson State and Florida A&M. That's all I see.
So I think that really the problem that we're seeing, especially with the schedule, is that you have a lot of these teams that are playing FBS opponents. So, of course, you have Jackson State that's playing Texas State this weekend. You have FAMU that played USF. FAMU looked really great against South Florida. We thought they would. They didn't win, but they look competitive. But you have, of course, you have Texas Southern that got blown out by Toledo. Then you had Prairie View. They play Abilene Christian and they lost. So you're playing these FBS teams, and you're not competing with them. I mean, Grambling, it was 72-10, but at the same time, Grambling for a little second looked good. So I think that Grambling, when they go into conference play, I think that Grambling is going to look really nice because the offense is legit, because, you have that back and forth shootout game with Hampton. Then you have an amazing offensive performance in a spurt with Miles Crawley at LSU against the FBS defense. I think that Grambling is going to show up. FAMU is going to be dominant, but they're not going to be the Jackson State dominant, I believe, that we've seen these past couple of years. I'm picking FAMU. I pick them to win the whole entire thing, Celebration Bowl, SWAC championship, everything. But I think you're going to see some close games. Like, you're not going to see that same Orange Blossom Classic performance. So I think the parity is definitely there. But a lot of these teams don't look as good as they will in conference play, because I think that they're going against more talented teams in the FBS, even lower tier FBS teams, where this recruiting class that they brought in and the talent they have in right now just can't compete with those teams. But I think that you'll see some competition from a lot of these different schools. I'm shaky on Southern. I don't think there's going to be Southern and FAMU in the SWAC championship anymore. Alcorn, I'm shaky on Alcorn. I honestly think that when we go to conference play, it really might be Grambling. You might have been right about that. It might be Grambling. I'm a little bit shaky. We'll really have to see. But let's go into headlines of the weekend. So, Arielle, we had really the same 2 headlines, and it's Morgan State we got to start off with, because, Arielle, we really were high on Morgan State after they beat Richmond, and we should have, because they did great against Akron. And Akron is not a great FBS team by any stretch of the imagination. They lost week 1 in a heartbreaker to Temple, right? So The big thing is that Morgan State has to go in there, have the dominating defense. Damon Wilson clearly knows how to win out-of-conference games. Him being that Bowie, and he won a lot of out-of-conference games at Bowie, made the playoffs, made a little run in the playoffs in 2021. So Damon Wilson knows what he needs to do to make things happen, and they did it. Got an interception in the end zone from Akron quarterback Jeff Undercluffer Jr. Got an interception from Jeff, and they were in the end zone about to score, and all you got to do is run the ball out. Like, get you a couple first downs and kneel that thing out. I can do that in Madden. Kneel that thing out and win that game. It ain't hard. And then you run it, and then it's a fumble and a scoop and score. Like, when I tell you my heart was broken, I was like, we were so close. I had a whole entire article I was going to write on Clutch Points about an HBCU beat an FBS team. I was so ready, Arielle. Then literally Morgan State fumbled it away. I don't think it's an indictment on them. Still think they're going to be a great team. And listen, the defense is amazing. So I don't think it's an indictment on them. But they literally fumbled it away. I almost cried. It was crazy.
That hurt my heart, but shout out to Morgan State, because when you look at MEAC opponents compared to the SWAC, it's so few of us, and it's hard to kind of rotate greatness or competition in a way without speaking on teams that are showing dominance, like how we see in Norfolk and how we see at Hampton, and of course, of what we see in Central. But Morgan State is trying to vie in this argument that we are just as good at those three teams, or more say better. Like, the fight and being able to almost win against Akron is incredible. But that scoop and score, my heart literally dropped. I mean, Brian McCoy deserves all that credit. That was incredible for his team in Akron, but it just hurts to see the quarterback from Morgan State go down. And Deuce Taylor, let me tell you, was having a game. That man was balling, and all credit to him, and it should be nothing on his part, because he literally did everything that he could to get Morgan State in this position to actually be able to win this game. But this to me was just an incredible performance, and I love to see HBCUs put up a fight, or at least try to win and have a shootout of a game, because that's basically what it was all the way into the fourth quarter, of trying to beat these schools that nobody gives them credit for. So this was a beautiful game. Unfortunately, they had to lose, but oh man, that I'm loving the talent that the MEAC is displaying, especially from Morgan State and especially from Hampton. But this, if you guys haven't watched it or you haven't even looked at the highlights, please, because this was a game that literally not only stole what we want to do for the weekend, but just stole our hearts completely, because the grit and the fight that Morgan State was displaying on that field was impeccable.
Yeah, and I think that one thing with Morgan State that we're seeing from them is that they have a really great defense. Because, when you look at what happened, when they fumbled the ball, because Morgan State got the ball back, they tried to get a couple first downs and run that time off the clock, and then, of course, kneel down. But Akron, they stood tall. They halted that run game, forced them to convert on a 3rd and 9, and then the scoop and score happened from then. From the 21-yard line, it was, like I said, was heartbreaking. The offense, I'm not really sold on it. I'm not sold on Morgan State's offense. I think that there is some hills they have to climb with that, and I think that when they go up against when they go up against North Carolina Central, when they go up against other competitive teams like Howard, I think that Howard's offense is refined. I think that North Carolina Central, you have like really a once-in-a-generation quarterback, because I honestly think, we think that's how great he is. So I think that that's going to be what eludes Morgan State and keeps them in that 3rd or 2nd place spot. It's either North Carolina Central most likely or Howard. But the defense is as advertised, and the running game is as advertised. You have J.J. Davis, that he had that fumble, but to be honest, like he had a good game. Like outside of, him getting that fumble and the scoop score happening and the ball was in his hands, like he had a really good game. And then you look at that defense, I really think that Morgan State's defense is going to be a problem. Like Akron could not run the ball. If you look at the box score, 8 yards of rushing, Like Akron had 8 yards of rushing. Now we know if you know you watch the game, that ain't true. It's not like they rushed for only 8 yards. They could even move the line of scrimmage a little bit. You know what I'm saying? 8 yards. They could they couldn't walk from their bed to the TV at home in the dorm room. Nah, they had more than 8 yards. They gained for 60 yards, but they lost so many yards because the QBs for Akron kept getting sacked. Jeff got sacked like for 43 yards. And then, you have DJ Arns that got sacked. So both of them were getting sacked. So that adds up after a while, so that's why the rushing yard total was so low, but also a testament to the pressure they were putting on those quarterbacks because Akron that played 2 quarterbacks. Now, Jeff Jr. for Akron, 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. I think that Morgan State has to get better with how teams move the ball down the field. Now, they're keeping them out the red zone for the most part. Only 1 touchdown this quarterback threw for. The 209 yards, I would rather 150, 160. Because I think you keep them around 150, 160, obviously that'll give your team a better outcome. But to me, that means in the story of the game that they're not moving the ball as well. Because you're stopping the run game. They want to establish the run game that can keep you on your toes. They can run it, they can pass it, play at your pass, really open things up, force you to be in man coverage, drop the safety. But, the big thing is that you got to stop the pass game. If they don't stop the pass game, I honestly think like a Davius Richard, he's going to doubt him up because Davius Richard is going to get better with his pass game as the year goes on. I think Howard, they're doing great with the run game. I think styles make fights. But at the same time, Howard might get in a situation where they can start doubting him up. So I think that the defense, as far as how they're defending the pass, has to be better. But the run game is really what I've seen that shine through. But Arielle, I just think the offense needs to get better if they really want to beat either North Carolina Central or Howard.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And I think for most of the teams, they're thinking that the ground game is what's going to be important. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing that you have to be able, in order to move down this field, and if you're not having strong quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders, or you're not having quarterbacks that are able to do both ways like Davius Richard, I think that having really good people that are in your backfield, having really good running backs is going to be essential, but you can't stay that way. And hopefully Morgan State and Howard and these other teams know that in order to win against games, and we're seeing it across the board, whether it's in NFL or it's in high school sports, or we're looking at or in D2 sports as well, you can't rely on what you're good at. You have to pivot. And hopefully in week 3, these teams, we see a pivot with them where if they're relying too heavy on the ground, that they put it in the air. And if they're relying too heavy in the air, they put it in the ground. But everybody has their kinks this week to work out. But it's not a bad start to the football season. We've seen some incredible, really close games, especially like how you said in FBS and FCS. So I'm really excited to see what happens in week 3 with these other teams.
I totally agree. And listen, Arielle, you already know the headline that we share for that number 2 is Miles College, SIAC Division II team, upsetting Alabama State. So before I just go off about it real quick, tell me what you thought about it.
I wasn't actually able to catch this game. I had to get the highlights of this game. But when I tell you I was literally speechless, Alabama State has not been the school that I thought it was going to be. Like last year, we saw that they had potential, and maybe, just maybe, they might be, somewhat on an up in the season I thought that we were going to have. But Miles College coming and beating Alabama State was something that I couldn't have even put in my little fortune telling ball. Like I can't make this stuff up. Like I don't know how they did it. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why Alabama State let it happen. But shout out to D2 schools, because they made us D1 schools look really, really silly this past weekend. I want to hear your thoughts, because I was just in awe that Alabama State really let Miles College come back and beat them. That's the whole storyline. And that's literally going to be the thing that haunts Alabama State for the rest of this season is what happened that Saturday and why did Miles College upset them?
Well, I think that, for me, I try my best not to be biased because I'm a D2 graduate. I went to Fort Valley State University, seen a lot of Miles College games. I was actually at Miles College's 2019 championship win versus Albany State before COVID. I was there. And it was Albany State's campus. It was a great game, and Miles College, seeing them up close once again, them winning that championship, it really said a lot about that program that Reginald Ruffin at the time was running. I think that oftentimes when it comes to FCS HBCUs and Division II HBCUs, there's a notion of superiority that I think needs to be tempered down. Yes, there's less scholarships in Division II as opposed to FCS, and there's a disparity from FCS to FBS. We know these things, but I think that when it comes to talent, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to scheme, I don't think that there is a big difference between Division II HBCUs, especially your top tier ones, and your Division I HBCUs, especially the ones that aren't necessarily contenders. Can FAMU go out and blow out Fort Valley like how they did the times we played them? Yeah, we weren't necessarily all that good. Did they do that to Albany State that just won the SIC championship? They didn't, because Albany State was one of the better teams in Division II. Can Alabama State who has a great defense, but they clearly don't have a great offense? They won 14-10 over Southern, but they don't have a great offense. Can you beat a Miles College team that's one of the better defenses in the SIC and Division II? Honestly, probably number 2 behind Benedict. I picked Alabama State just because I wanted to be right. But in my heart, I was like, Miles College is going to win that game. And yeah, you had Alabama State that went up 14-0 to start the game. And it was like, okay, I'm going to be right. Alabama State is going to go in there and get them out of there. But you look at the game, and everybody's been saying this, Miles College, Division II or not, they were the better team. So Alabama State, if you look at the passing numbers and rushing numbers, Alabama State entered the game with more passing yards, 210, and more rushing yards, 190. They had more passing and rushing yards than Miles. But Miles was way more efficient when they had that ball on offense. They finished the game with more first downs. So they had 19 first downs, more third down conversions. They were 7-15. They ran 68 offensive plays to Alabama State's 53, like about 60 to 70. And they averaged 14 yards per completion. And then they dominated the time of possession, 34 minutes and 11 seconds. And every time that Miles College got in the red zone, they scored. That's how you win a game. Then on top of that, they nabbed 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions from Demetrius Davis. So you look at that team, like Miles College was the better team. And people are like, oh, they lost to a D2 school? Oh my gosh. It shouldn't be that shocking, because is it shocking that there's other levels of football with HBCUs that have talent? Is that shocking? I don't think it is. And I was making this argument on Twitter. And, it really bothered me because I hate the faux notions of superiority in life in general. I really hate that. Like, oh, just because I'm here, I'm better than you. I hate that in anything, right? But it really irks me when it comes to Division II versus FCS HBCUs, because it almost seems as if people feel as if only the FCS HBCU should have draft picks, because Joshua Williams got drafted out of Fayetteville State. Emmanuel Wilson made the Packers roster, although he didn't play this past Sunday. So, like, there's talent in Division II. It ain't just Jackson State. It's not just FAMU. It's not just A&T. It's not just Central. Like, there's talent across all HBCUs. So when you have D2 HBCUs on your schedule, like, the people think it's going to just be Howard versus Morehouse. Morehouse is rebuilding. That happens. But when you play a team, you put Benedict on your schedule and see if you gonna score 65 on them. Like put this Fort Valley on your schedule and see what happens, because we different. Okay, like put the Albany State that gave Gardena years. Put Tuskegee. Tuskegee used to beat FCS teams all the time. We're not trying to pit HBCUs against each other, but what we're saying is that our Division II HBCUs have talent as well. Because the pushback I already heard is that, well, it looks bad when FCS HBCUs lose to HBCU Division II teams, because it makes us look bad to NFL scouts. Because, oh, our boys aren't going to get drafted because we can't beat teams with less scholarships. There are other conferences that aren't HBCU conferences where Division II opponents are beating the FCS opponents. It happens. Who's to say that Ferris State this weekend, who's the champions of Division II, is not going to beat Montana State, a really good blue blood FCS team? Who's to say that? Who's to say that West Florida, we're rooting for FAMU. Who's to say West Florida won't make that game competitive against FAMU? Are you going to say, well, it's a D2 team, should have blown them out? They have talent on this level. And last thing I'll say, Arielle, is that it makes our athletes in Division II look bad if they're saying, well, if y'all can't beat these Division II teams, you shouldn't be in the NFL. When there's talent here. So what you're saying is that every Division II HBCU that you schedule is a cupcake team, and there's not professional talent in these ranks. When Shannon Sharp is a Hall of Famer, y'all love him, he went to Savannah State. Like when you have all this talent that we've seen that's made it to the league, and you have HBCUs that were in the SIAC, they're in the NCCIAA, that moved up to the SWAC and the MEAC, and of course the other conferences for some of them, they were in Division II. So like that's the thing that irks me, is that there's talent at this level, and this notion of, oh, you lost to a D2 team, fire the coach, Eddie Robinson should be gone. Or this notion of, well, you won, Howard beat Morehouse, but they're a Division II team. No, Howard beat Morehouse because Howard was the better team. Miles College beat Alabama State narrowly because they were the better team. At Alabama State, they don't have a good offense right now. Great defense, no offense. So it really irks me, just that mentality, Arielle. It just really irks me.
No, but I mean, you have a point, and it's been displayed, even though we're still early in the season. But even towards the end of last season, that D2 is making a shift. They are getting better players, they're getting better staff, they're getting better coaches, and they're just getting better in general. And so now we're seeing, now that the schedule's kind of widened and the competition has kind of varied, that when they play these schools and they perform these kind of upsets, or they perform at a way that gets them close to even overturning on these really big D1 schools, you have to stop and think about it, but not negatively, like, oh, they're just a D2 school, so if they won, that's great for them, or oh, they're just a D2 school, why are we losing to them? It's like, oh, these D2 schools can actually compete. They're actually really, really good. They have actual players. And I hate that, and I did it a little bit earlier in the show. I hate that when we look at D2 schools, including me, it's just like, well, okay, this was just a really good win, an easy win, and like a confidence booster. But like, as you said, I should look at them like this is competition, regardless of where they stand, regardless of where they are. Because like you said, Miles just outplayed Alabama State. And that's not the first and only team that has outplayed Alabama State. I don't know what's going on behind those scenes, but they haven't been together since last year. So this shouldn't have surprised me, but also it shouldn't surprise me as well to hear how the game went and to see how the game went, and just still think that Miles College wasn't the better team or wasn't strong enough of a team to beat Alabama State, because the proof is in the pudding. And if they continue like this, if they continue to have this grit, we'll probably see more upsets by Miles College and by other D2 schools that we personally just think aren't as great as the schools that we already root for. It's okay to say that D1 has problems. We're seeing it now, and we're seeing those problems when you try to leave a conference that was tailored to you and you used to win in. You see that with A&T. And A&T is still a D1 school, but we've been losing and having bad seasons for 2 years straight. So I think it's time for us, and for me as well, to put back those notions that all D2 schools, this is an easy win, or if they win, congratulations to them, they needed this. They don't need anything from us. What they are trying to tell us and what they send as a signal loud and clear against Alabama State is that they're coming for us. They're probably better than us, and don't look at them lowly just because it says D2 and whatever their school name is, because Miles College put a warning sign out there going across all the doors. These D2 schools are coming, and we got to give them the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, and I really appreciate that sentiment. I know that it's never going to change, because I think innately with humans, we're going to look for superiority over other people. I think that that's innate in job positions, in relationships, even in friendships, in friend groups, in political affiliations. We want to look to be better. And that's just an innate thing. to be better than other people, to be better than another group. Sports especially, because sports is tribal. But I just think that if we're talking about the upliftment of HBCUs, and the notion is that, well, if these Division II teams keep beating these FCS HBCUs, is clearly a problem, and it looks like Davius Richard and these guys aren't going to get drafted. If they're not going to get drafted, they're not scouting. Because I'll just say this. Like, look at what Shedeur Sanders is doing. And I'll just say this, we'll move on. Shedeur Sanders, we looked and we saw Shedeur Sanders do that at Jackson State. That Nebraska game on Saturday was just the Alabama State game, Alabama State who ain't SWAC game last year. That's all Nebraska was. Because Alabama State played great defense. They were stacking Shedeur. They were putting pressure on him. He wasn't that effective in the first half. Then they pulled away and won in the second half. Then the who ain't SWAC shove happened. So if you're telling me, oh, now Shedeur is going to be a top 3 QB pick, but you didn't see it in FCS, that says a lot about how you evaluate talent. So if Miles College beating Alabama State is not going to get Colton Adams drafted or Bubba drafted, that's on you. Like if Central State beating Mississippi Valley is not going to get some Mississippi Valley players to be considered to be undrafted free agents or drafted, that ain't my problem. I'm out there to win at the end of the day. So that's just really the notion that really is crazy to me. So you're telling me if Davius Richard has a great game against UCLA, which we're rooting for him to beat an FBS team, that's not going to make him look good? And the UCLA fans are going to be like, you know what? We suck, fire the coach. Like, they're winning games. They were 9-4 last year. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think this notion of like this superiority of we got to be better. We have to be head and shoulders above. When there's other opponents in other conferences that are beating FCS teams, not just HBCUs. Because like I said, I want to say the last thing. I'm watching that Ferris State, Montana State game because Ferris State, they won the D2 championship back-to-back. They beat Valdosta in 2021. They beat Colorado School of Mines in 2022. So I'm just saying, like, Ferris State is great. They have a great defense, a great run game. So if they beat Montana State, are you going to say fire the coach at Montana State? No, you're not, because you're not even going to watch it because it's not an HBCU. Anyway, let's just move on and let's talk about, our games of the week, Arielle. So for me, my game of the week, and this was tough. I'm not going to lie to you, because I think that I have the potential to be very wrong, okay? My game of the week is UCLA versus North Carolina Central. So my thing is, I've been building up almost like a scouting tape, like a scouting, situation against UCLA. And here's something that popped out to me when I was looking at the numbers, Arielle, looking at the game. So, of course, Alabama State, speaking of Alabama State, played UCLA last year. And UCLA's pass defense is not that great. And Alabama State, in the past, did pretty well getting the ball down the field. Of course, when Alabama State got destroyed by UCLA 45-7. But Alabama State averaged 195 yards passing for the season. UCLA gave up 223 yards passing against Alabama State in that game that they played. So for me, that caused me to look at UCLA a little bit different, because it's like, man, y'all let Alabama State, who was not a great offense, we're seeing that this year, y'all were letting them pass on y'all. Like, y'all let them get right. I know Miles Crowley was on that team last year, but y'all were letting them get down the field. And then, we saw the numbers regress to the mean, and they didn't see another game like that. So I'm looking at UCLA, and I see a big glaring issue in their secondary. Now, of course, they were outscoring teams. You had UCLA, like they were allowing 273 passing yards a game, but they were just straight out scoring teams last year. And they started out 2-0 this year. So I was close to being like, you know what? Maybe I want to change my pick, Arielle. Maybe I'm not going to pick North Carolina Central, because UCLA 2-0. But then you look at the trend. They beat Coastal Carolina. They beat San Diego State. They held both opponents to 11 points per game. But you look at the passing yards. The pass defense is still an issue. They gave up 242 yards passing on average for both of those games. Against teams they handily beat, kept them out the end zone. They only scored 11 points. So what that tells me, Arielle, is that a competent quarterback can move the ball down the field on them. And who better than a more than competent quarterback? Who better than a generational quarterback? Who better than the dual threat quarterback in HBCU football, Davius Richard, to move the ball down the field and put him in field goal position, put him in position to score? He's going to run that ball in the end zone. He's going to be better passing the ball and get the upset over UCLA. It's going to come down to Davius Richard. Davius Richard is going to go crazy because this is his draft game. We talk about players getting drafted. This is Davius Richard's draft game. So I honestly believe that this is how he gets drafted or undrafted and get into the league. I think that people are going to really start looking at Davius Richard different with how he fares against an FBS opponent. But that offensive line is going to really be key to how North Carolina Central competes in this game. They got to make sure they keep Davius Richard upright. They got to make sure they contain that pass rush and also help when Davius Richard wants to scramble and run the ball and Mookie Collier wants to run the ball to get them in position to win this game. Because I think it will be competitive. And another thing too, one last thing, Arielle, is that Khalil Baker. Khalil Baker, I said he was a player to watch. Khalil Baker, I want to see him get drafted too. I want to see him put up some draft tape in this game. Like you have 3 receivers for UCLA that are really good that I want to see him lock down. You have J. Michael Sturvant. He's a Cal transfer, had 5 receptions, 136 yards, and 1 touchdown versus Coastal Carolina. He like Khalil Baker might need to really match up with him. They might need to really put Khalil Baker on him. They might play some zone. But then, man, I want to see Khalil Baker knock that ball out of his hands. Aeneas Williams Awards winner, right? Be Aeneas Williams in this game. Like, knock that ball out. Get interceptions. You got Logan Lawyer. He had 4 receptions for 77 yards, 1 touchdown versus San Diego State. Knock that ball out of his hands. Get him out of rhythm. Make it where like they can't get their route effectively. Josiah Norwood, 2 receptions, 87 yards, 1 touchdown versus San Diego State. Khalil Baker for sure needs to lock these boys down, but it's not just him. He's one man. So that secondary in general, lock them down because they got some talent. They have some offensive talent in that wide receiver room at UCLA. But Khalil Baker, Davius Richard, Mookie Collier, they got to lock them down, Arielle. And if they do, I'm picking them. Okay, I'm picking them by field goal. It's going to be within 3 points. It's going to look like Appalachian State versus Michigan in 2007 by field goal. Okay? They're going to win this game. All right? If they lose, I'll just take it. I'll take it. But they're going to win this game by field goal, Arielle.
It's always, you always, when the confidence is up, that's when the assurity of maybe Central winning this game goes up too. I am going to give Central my vote. And this has been on my mind since we started this episode. I honestly believe that if Davius Richard put up the same, because Central has had, to me, the better team than Jackson State from the 2 years that we had Deion Sanders. That's just been the better team, period. Forget the recruitment class, forget what he did for Jackson State, which was amazing. But Central has had the better team. But if Davius Richard put up half of the numbers that Shedeur Sanders has to put up now, and he is the better player, I would believe that he would steal the Heisman Trophy completely. Like, you see Shedeur Sanders, and like he's had a great 2 games, like over 500 yards in passing, and his completion numbers have been absolutely amazing. But they had chirps at him at Jackson State that he could be a Heisman. But now that he's at Colorado, it's like, oh yeah, he can definitely steal it. If Davius Richard had the same opportunity, which I know he would never leave Central, but if he was to leave Central and put up half of the points and half of the yards that Shedeur Sanders was doing right now at Colorado, and him, to me, being a better quarterback, Heisman contention completely. I hate how they're just because they go to HBCU does not mean the capability. Because to me, like how we see and what he's been doing, this is a better quarterback than any of the ones that we're seeing playing now. And for him not to have Heisman talks is crazy to me. But I think it's just because of the schools that he's at and also the numbers. Like, we haven't seen a 200 yards in passing or above these past 2 games, which to me is a little irregular following Davius Richards and the kind of season that he usually puts up. I mean, I know it's just the beginning, but I just think this is a little low for him. But the passing yards are definitely going to go up against UCLA. You have no problem about that. But I do agree with you that they have to be locked down. Baker is going to be really essential. But on to my game of the week. My game of the week is Howard versus Hampton, the real HU battle, as some people like to call it. I definitely think, and I can say this confidently, and I'm trying to reassure myself that this is going to be confident, that Howard is going to win this game. Hampton, to me, especially Christopher Zealous, I've seen the same two stats that he's had for these back-to-back games when he had played Grambling and when they were there at East Michigan. Same 14 and 21 when he was playing Grambling, but he was 14 of 26 when it comes to completions in his pass attempts. Same amount of yardage, about 150. But in this Grambling game, he had 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. But in this Eastern Michigan game, he only had 2 touchdowns. But I see a lack of consistency. When he was playing Eastern Michigan, they just was on decline, period. They tried to come back within the second half, and that really didn't work out. Before Grambling, they were winning. And they could have pulled out. They didn't have all these mistakes, and you saw them in the second half. So the inconsistencies of Hampton really scare me going against Howard, who once they start on a roll, stay that way, and they can only go up from there. I think there have been improvements to Howard's offense extremely these past year and during the offseason. And it's going to be hard for Hampton to beat that if they can't figure out what they need to do on offense themselves, because their defense isn't really that great. Not saying that the competition that they have played these past 2 weekends has displayed the type of ability that their defense has. It definitely could have been put to the test against Grambling, and a game that they should not have lost by 4 points. Well, should not have won by 4 points, actually. Honestly, my correction. They should have blew Grambling out, just to me, but that's just a testament on you, how you were speaking so highly of them, that they may come back this season and prove that they're a more dominant team than what we've been seeing. But Hampton has had these really close games where they can show that they are better and show their strength. But it's something in there in that offense that just collapses. And I think that is on the quarterback not being able to sustain his team. So this is the only reason why I say Howard could potentially win it. And like I said, they've been on a growth spurt this past season. I'm extremely proud of what they've been doing coaching-wise and on the coaching side, building up their quarterback to make him a little bit better. He was really terrible. I would have to say one of the worst passing quarterbacks that I had seen the season previous to last year. But Howard is going to take this. Maybe I'm not good with numbers, but Howard is probably, this is not going to be a blowout and maybe 2 scores. But Hampton is just not, I'm not sure about them. They're not doing it for me specifically.
I feel it. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I had Hampton down. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna change my pick. I'm changing my pick. You convinced me. I pick Howard. If you're confident in Howard, I'm confident in Howard, because the reason why I picked Hampton is because I just feel like, Hampton might pull it out at the end of the day, but I'm very confident in Howard. I feel like this win could mean everything. This win can mean, to me, even more than the Eastern Michigan game, because they lost that game. They competed well against an FBS opponent, but this is your rival. This is your rival. And you got Howard, Howard's lost some games to Hampton. So like the fact you beat your rival, and it possibly, I think it could be decisive, because I honestly think that Howard got some stuff cooking. They got some great players. They got some guys that could really get drafted. Kenny Gallup Jr. is one of the guys, you really, we're propping up. So I think that they can go out there and win, because I just think they have the squad this year. And I think that we're not going to see them really be tested into that Morgan State or North Carolina Central game. So I'm going to pick Howard just off, the strength of what you're saying. And we own Sirius XM channel 142 HBCU. Shout out to Howard. I love me some Howard. They gave me my opportunity being in radio, our opportunity being in radio Arielle. So listen, we're going to go with Howard this time around. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Howard. And I think that, they're for sure going to win. So listen, so we gave our games of the week. So like I said, we're going to be tracking our progress to see how good we are at picking these games. So we track the progress. And here's the record, okay? So I was 9-7 in the games we picked, including our games of the week on last week. So I picked North Carolina Central for your game of the week. For my game of the week, I picked Jackson State by 2 touchdowns. So I was right about that. I was 9-7. I was wrong about Hampton. I thought Hampton was going to beat Norfolk. I was wrong about Hampton. I was right about North Carolina Central. That's the reason why I am 9-7. I also didn't choose Miles. I could have been 10-6 if I chose Miles to win it against Alabama State. I didn't have the courage of my conviction. So for that, 9-7. Arielle, you were 8-8. You were right about Norfolk, But of course, you were wrong about A&T versus Central, but we're not going to hold that against you because that is your team. Okay. That's your school. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. So to be fair, we didn't do all that bad. And of course, we have FBS matchups. So we might, we could take them off. We could take the FBS matchups off and have a better record, but we're not going to do it because we real. Okay. We real we just going to take that. All right. So we was wrong by Morgan State and Akron. Okay. So we're going to really, try to lock in and really get our records better this week. So, and also we're going to do D2 as well. So let's talk about the games of the week. So we're going to start off with FCS versus FBS. So Bethune-Cookman versus Miami. Can we agree that Miami has this one?
Oh, we can definitely agree. Sorry, Bethune-Cookman. We love you so much. But yeah, we can definitely agree Miami got this.
So yeah, so Temple versus Norfolk. So I'm interested to see who you pick for this one. So who do you pick for Temple versus Norfolk?
I'm going for Temple. Norfolk has made interesting competition as to certainly why we should choose them. I just think Temple has a little bit more power and a little bit more concise team than Norfolk has right now. Like I said, they have a compelling argument to make that I could be wrong, but I think Temple is coming out with this win.
So, okay, I totally agree. I think Temple's going to win this game. So Texas Southern versus Rice. Texas Southern got beat down this past weekend. Shout out to them, they got beat down. So can we agree that Rice going to win this game?
Yeah, we can definitely agree.
Okay, just speeding through. So SMU versus Prairie View A&M. So Prairie View didn't fare that well against Abilene Christian. So can we agree SMU going to win?
I want to hesitate. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I just don't see it for them this week. So yes, we can't agree on SMU.
Okay, so
we were just talking about them actually at my station.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, crazy, isn't it? We talk about them in sports. Yeah, SMU may take this away from Prairie View.
You can be talking about them next week too, and they beat Prairie View. I'm telling you, you can talk about them too. Where it's like, listen, that's not all HBCUs, okay? A&T beat 3 FBS teams, so calm down. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're gonna tell them. All right. So listen, okay, Jackson State versus Texas State. So I was very bullish on this matchup in our preseason show because I saw some glaring issues in Texas State. I think in general, when you look at the FBS, what you see from the box score numbers is that they're not good at pass defense. Like, you have teams like Georgia that are great defensively all around, like all-time great defenses. But every FBS team isn't Georgia. And I know that when you look at the passing numbers, they're playing FBS quarterbacks. Now, of course, my argument is we have talented quarterbacks in HBCU football, like a Davius Richard. That's why I'm picking North Carolina Central to upset UCLA. But at the same time, a competent quarterback can pass for over 150 yards to 200 yards, especially if you have a wide receiver that's quick, that's elusive, that can get to their spots. You run some good plays. So honestly, for me, Jason Brown has to be better. I think Zy McDonald could be really good as well. But I'm picking Jackson State in this one. I'm picking Jackson State. Now, Texas State just beat Baylor, okay? They just upset Baylor in week 1. So I was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. I don't know. But I will say that all these folks that are saying, well, these prognosticators, they're saying that Jackson State's not going to win. It's the committee. I'm not a part of that committee, okay? I'm a part of the HBC Post Radio Committee. I believe in Jackson State. I believe Jackson State going to be good. And win or lose, I'm picking Jackson State to win this game because I think that there's a way that TC Taylor can scheme that game and win. I would say if they win, it's going to be, once again, by a field goal. It's going to be a really close game. But if they lose, it could be a blowout because Texas State seems to be really good and they got the quarterback room together, but I'm picking Jackson State.
Texas State is winning. I'm sorry. Texas State is winning. I mean, if you put Brown on that field, I don't feel as if from these past 2 performances that they have been the most consistent. And that's the thing with Brown, his inconsistencies. And I know they're still trying to figure out that quarterback room after losing a very remarkable quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. And their team isn't bad. Their team has the ability to put points on the board. They're really tough and they're strong. But Texas State upsetting Baylor steals the whole argument that they could win. And I'm not saying there's not anything wrong on Texas State's side. They still have a defense that they need to figure out because that Baylor game may have just been luck. But I see this as a close game. I can't give them that. I can see this as a close game because Jackson State is not going out without a fight. But I do believe they will lose this game. Texas State is going to win.
All right, so that's our first delineation. So we'll see what happens with that. So HBCUs versus non-HBCU FCS teams. So Delaware State versus Richmond. Let's be real. Can we just say Richmond's gonna win this game against Delaware
Let's
State?
do it. Yeah. Sorry, we're not even going to debate
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So Tennessee State versus Gardner Webb. I picked Tennessee State.
Congratulations to them. And I'm happy that I'm being proven wrong because listen, that man's job was on the line. It's been on the line since last year. And he was like, listen, he now sees that he on the line. All that good nonprofit charity work that he's doing is great for the school. But your job is on the line, sir, because you haven't produced the football team that we need to see. But that win was absolutely amazing. And so, yes, we can agree that Tennessee State is going to beat Gardner Webb.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that game, the Southern Heritage Classic, I think that Tennessee State should have won more decisively. What you saw on the box score at the end, because Tennessee State scores that last second touchdown or that last touchdown in the fourth quarter. Like, I think it was a closer game than it needed to be. And it showed me a lot about UAPB, and we'll talk about them in a second. But I think that Tennessee State, if they start really getting to it and once again beating these FCS teams, because, of course, you have Gardner Webb that's in the Big South. So, they're not in the OVC play just yet. So if they beat Gardner Webb, I think that Eddie George's seat is going to be safe. And I think it gives them some good stuff to build on. So I think that Tennessee State wins this game. We both agree on that. So Alcorn versus McNeese State. So here's a note. Alcorn beat McNeese State 30-19 last season, but they've struggled. And I know they played an FBS opponent, but they've struggled to start this year. And the quarterback room seems like it's not all that great this year. So I'm going to pick, honestly, Alcorn. I'm probably going to be wrong because they beat McNeese State last year. But I'm going down with the ship. I'm picking Alcorn, but I don't know.
We might be going down together because I really want them to win this game, but they haven't been as confident nor played as confident as they could be. And we all see that they've been struggling since the end of last season. It has not been great, but hopefully Alcorn, please give us, positive points that we pick you, please, because I want this win for you. It's not even them winning this for themselves. We want you to win. We're all rooting for you. Please do not disappoint us.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. So, this is a good one. North Carolina A&T versus Elon. So, Arielle, what you thinking?
I'm in my Delulu phase. I'm in my Falcons phase. I'm rocking with them till the wheels fall off. Even if we go 0-10 this season, I'm rocking with them. As you can see, the confidence is not in my voice, but that's my team. That's my school. I'm going to rep them till I die. So North Carolina A&T over Elon.
Confident. I think A&T has to pick it up at some point. I think he has to start this week. Central is honestly might be pound for pound alongside FAMU the best team in HBCU football, especially in the SWAC and the MEAC. Of course, they play UAB, and that's not a good first game to play, especially with some inconsistencies at the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. I think that they're going to do like how they did last year. A&T was in the Big South. They won some pivotal games. So I think that we're going to see them in the CAA. They're going to win some pivotal games. So I know you're going to pick them, but you're not confident. I'm confident that this could be the week that they start the win. But if not, I guess I'll just be wrong. Okay. Morgan State versus Towson. So honestly, I needed to look at this one a little bit more, especially after they fumbled that game against Akron. But here's my thing. Let's just say they didn't fumble the ball. They would have won the game. If they didn't fumble the ball and they got those first downs and kneeled down, they would have beaten Akron. So I think that Morgan State's defense, especially that run defense, like I was talking about, I think that it is as advertised. Like I said, it's as advertised, and I think they are good on that front. So for me, I'm going to pick Morgan State because I believe that that defense is holding up well. And if they do beat Towson, it's going to be a terror for North Carolina Central and Howard and Norfolk and all these different teams because they're coming.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. And I think Townsend might pull through just because Morgan State at the end of this game, and that fumble was probably a pit in everybody's stomach. And, it's it happens. You have these games where like you're doing really good, and then just the worst of it happens. We saw it last night with the Jets and the Bills. That's just something that nobody had expected. And of course, this season is not supposed to be scripted. I love that. I love that commercial and the what they chose, because it just makes me think everything is scripted now since the beginning game. But I think that Morgan State will still be riding off that fumble and will play too cautiously, which will allow Townsend to capitalize off of that. And I know the coaches, and they're probably thinking like, we got to shake it off. We got to come back from this. But having that kind of a loss, that kind of close loss, it does affect your game and how you're going to play. So I think if they don't have that shaken off or brushed off their shoulders within that first quarter, Townsend could run away with it. And that's what I'm scared about. But I believe Townsend might pull through. That's my pick.
I feel it. So we have a little delineation there. So that, hey, that's good. We go see who's right. So of course, well, Howard Hampton, we both pick Howard. You convinced me. We both pick Howard in the Battle of the Royal HU. So Grambling versus Florida Memorial. Oh my gosh. So Florida Memorial was actually really good. They're actually really good. They're an NAIA school. They beat Edward Waters in the SIC. They beat Edward Waters. They beat them for the past 2 years in the Big Cat Classic. And they had a shootout against Bluefield University, not Bluefield State in the CIAA, Bluefield University. So they had a shootout. It was a heavy offensive game in week 0. I think that Grambling's going to win, because I'll just say this, that if we look at history, Florida Memorial did lose 86-0 to Southern last year. So just saying. So I'm just saying. Now, Florida Memorial goes out there and wins. Hey, I'm rocking with it. But I just think that Grambling's going to win this game, especially with offense that I see.
Grambling had my vote regardless. I think, to me, this is a good win, and a little bit of a good matchup, just to test to see how Grambling is actually faring out. But I wouldn't be surprised if Florida Memorial overpowers them and wins. Like, it's one of those things, like Grambling, like, it's literally given to you. Like, this, we want to see you do great. But it's just that inkling of like Florida Memorial does have the capability to win. But Grambling, we're going to agree. Grambling, you have our vote that this game is yours. Like, you have our blessing, our HBCU Pulse Sirius XM podcast blessing that you win.
Yeah, I mean, Florida Memorial, that offense is crazy. I'm telling you, they got a high-powered offense. Like, so I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be as decisive this year. I don't think they put up a goose egg. I think that if they lose, no matter what, if it's 90 points that Grambling puts up, I think they get 14. You know what I'm saying? Like, they gonna get on that scoreboard. If it's a close game, they're gonna get by a touchdown or two. You know what I'm saying? Because this offense is legit. So I think it's going to be interesting. So Southern versus Alabama A&M. So just to hit this one really quickly, I'm going to pick Southern for this one, because come on. They got to win at some point. Arielle. I'm picking Southern.
I'm picking Alabama A&M.
Okay.
Just over Southern over Alabama A&M. That's pretty bold. It's pretty bold, Randall.
They got to win at some point. Kill Glass not walking through that door for Alabama A&M. Kill Glass gone. He not walking through the door. Like, I'm just saying. Like, Robert Mathis ain't walking through that door. You know what I'm saying? He about to be in Hall of Fame. He ain't walking through that door. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, listen, Southern, like, Pete Richardson not walking through that door either. All right, but I'm just saying. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying. So I need Southern to win this game, because listen, I know this is this is not going to count against them in the SWAC West, because Alabama A&M is in the SWAC East. But you got to get a win, man. You got to get a win on that board. This ain't looking good. So listen, so you pick A&M, I'm picking Southern. So let's do Division 2. So I'm gonna toss it to you, to lead on that. So Division 2.
I'm so excited. Yay. We're back with our Division 2 matchups. They make me happy. I love discussing them. All right, we started with the CIAA. Bowie versus Shaw. Who do you have?
So Bowie's gonna win this game. They beat Delaware State. Bowie is traditionally a really good Division II team. I think that they get back to where they were. They were really good last season, but Damian Wilson leaves and goes to Morgan State. So I think that, they lost a little bit of the recipe. And then Virginia Union broke out because they had Jada Byers, doing a lot of amazing things up there in CIAA North. So I think Bowie wins this game. Shaw is going to have a really rough start, and the schedule makers weren't kind to them. You lose to Benedict, then you lose an out-of-conference game to a non-HBCU. Now you got Bowie trying to get back where they fit in. It ain't good for him.
All right. I'm right with you on that one. Hopefully you don't steer me wrong, Randall. Next, we got Virginia State versus St. Augustine. Who are you picking for this one?
Virginia State, I think that they're going to be scary because it's been a two-person race. It's always a two-person race in the CIAA North, and Bowie tends to win out. But Virginia Union was close to winning out until Chawan stole it from him. Chawan's gone now. So I think Virginia State, they got some guys. They got some guys that could possibly get some draft buzz. And then they just beat Norfolk like how Bowie beat Delaware State. So I'm just saying, I think that Virginia State wants their respect. So they're going to handily beat. So they're going to handily beat St. Augustine's. St. Augustine's isn't there yet. They need to rebuild and get things together. So Virginia State wins this game.
Listen, the confidence level is on 100. I'm all right. Okay, then. So then we have Lincoln University of Pennsylvania versus Fayetteville State. Who you got?
So this is a tougher one because this probably could be like the game of the week for the CIAA because Lincoln is getting really good and they have a really great quarterback. But I just Fayetteville State's 0-2 right now. They lost a gimme game to UNC Pembroke that in that first week that I was watching on the way to my brother's football game. He's in the band. And, we're going to support him at the game. And I'm watching it on the road. And they were looking really good. They got the lead against UNC Pembroke. And they fumbled it, and they lost that game. Not fumble literally, but they fumbled the game. Not like Morgan State. They fumbled the game, and they lost. Not like Morgan State. So, they got to get back on the board. And I think that this could be the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lincoln beat them. I honestly wouldn't be because Lincoln is a quality offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lincoln beat them, but I'm going to choose Fayetteville State just to be safe.
Fayetteville State, just know you're his safe choice, not his only choice, his safe choice. I'm sorry you threw Morgan State underneath the bus like that. You're not going to get away with these comments. Like they have been disastrous, Randall. We're almost done. Johnson C. Smith, shout out to them versus Bluefield State. Who you got?
Listen, Johnson C. Smith, worked to establish football. Okay. Worked to establish HBCU football back in the day. This ain't that team. Bluefield State gonna win. Bluefield State. That's that. This ain't 1800. Bluefield State gonna win. This ain't the same. Okay, listen. Bluefield State is gonna win this game. Bluefield State, they're coming to the CIAA and they're taking names. Okay, they're gonna be really good. I think for years to come. So Bluefield State got this locked up for sure.
Listen, we've seen a lot of times that there have been forefathers and front runners that have started the movement, but sometimes you're not the one to finish it. And I feel that. Johnson C. Smith, you're just not the one to finish it. And that's okay. Y'all finish the race soon. Almost last one, Livingstone versus Virginia Union. You have basically turned me willingly into a Jada Byers fan. So I already know who I want. But what is your pick, Randall?
Virginia Union, easy. Jada Byers, he's coming to that Harlan Hill this year. I think that Jada Byers really wants to win this CIAA championship. He wants to make the playoffs again and get that back when he lost against Wingate, because Wingate contained him. And they want to just be dominant, and they did really great against Morehouse. So I honestly believe that Virginia Union is going to win this game. Just in general. Livingstone, like I said, they established, the culture with the football, but it's just that they're not where they need to be. Ben Coates ain't walking through that door. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying. So I think Virginia is going to win this game because Ben Coates is walking through that door for Livingstone, but Jada Byers is walking through that door, and he's the new great for Virginia Union. So Virginia Union going to win this game.
All righty, last but not least, Winston-Salem versus Elizabeth City State. That was a lot. Who are you picking?
Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem, they got to get back right somehow. And I think that Elizabeth City State is the right game to get them together. Elizabeth City State, they've had some good teams in the past, but just not recently. So I think that Winston-Salem is going to win this game pretty handily.
All right, let's go ahead and move on now. We got the SIAC. To me, the SIAC. We're going to start Tuskegee versus Central State. I really want Tuskegee to win this, but who do you have, Randall?
Tuskegee's going to win this. They're doing their thing. They have, Antonio Meeks, who could easily, that's why I'm saying talent in Division II. Antonio Meeks easily could get drafted when it's his time, especially if he stays at Tuskegee. He's going to be that guy. So Antonio Meeks, you got Aaron James, who's a former Tuskegee quarterback and has seen so much success for Tuskegee and was a part of it from 1998 to 2000. So I think he wants to restore Tuskegee back to where it always has been. And I think Central State is a formality. Shout to Coach Kevin Porter. You know, they beat Mississippi Valley. Kevin Porter was at Fort Valley before he parted ways with Fort Valley back in 2019. I got a lot of love for Coach Porter, but nah, Tuskegee got this one for sure.
I'm glad we can agree on something. Next, we got Savannah State, who's produced phenomenal talent, versus Clark Atlanta. I love my Panthers. My sisters are Panthers. Been a rough of a season, but who you got?
Fort Valley beat down Clark Atlanta. They beat them down. I watched that game. I was
trying to sugarcoat it. It's been rough. It's been more than rough, but
yeah, I don't know what Coach Willie Slater gonna do. I don't know what he gonna do to get them going. But Savannah State, they disappointed me. They're really disappointed me. And, because I looked at them different when they beat Fort Valley and ruined our playoff chances. I'm never going to get over that because we couldn't make the playoffs. But, Savannah State ain't been looking that good. We thought they were going to beat Bethune-Cookman. They didn't. So we're both wrong about that. So I don't know. I think Slater needs to get a win to get the Clark Atlanta faithful confident in him. And I think this possibly could be that win because this is the Savannah State that came down from the MEAC, and when was winning in 2019, 7-3, 2021, 8-2. This ain't the same team. So I think that, they got to get it together. But I think Clark Atlanta could win this game. But I put down Savannah State. So I put down Savannah State. I really want to change my pick to Clark Atlanta, but I'm going to stay with Savannah State. I'm going to stay.
Are you sure? Going once.
Yeah, I'm going to lock in. All
right. He's locked in, guys. All right, next, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. We talk about them a lot versus Miles, who just had an outstanding upset. Who do you have?
So, of course, Pine Bluff is swag, and they have been looking really good. They look really great against Tennessee State. But Miles, I'm telling you, Miles got that recipe, and then UAPB, they had that duel last year, and it wasn't all that far away. So I didn't pick Miles last week. I think it's going to be flip-flop. I was wrong. I might be right this week. I'm gonna pick Miles. I'm going with Miles, SIC. They're gonna respect us at some point.
At some point. The key word at some point, they will respect you. Will it be today? Probably not. But you know what? I might be with you on this one. That upset has me kind of turning my wheels slightly to the other side. Miles might be with you. On next, Allen versus Kentucky State.
I pick Allen. Kentucky State, they started out really nice against Clark Atlanta. Tuskegee beat them down. So with Allen got a really great passing offense. I know it's statistically, it might not be the best passing offense in the SIC from last year to this year, but it looks great. And that they have a competent quarterback. Coach Keaton is an amazing offensive mind. He has a great offensive mind around him. Allen really is just getting back into the conference, and they want to be competitive. So I think that Allen beats them by a touchdown or two. I'm sort of shaky on how dominant they're going to be, but I think the big test is going to be Kentucky State's defensive line and the pressure they're going to put on the quarterback because Allen wants to pass it. But I'm picking Allen to win.
I'm with you on that one. The next one we got Albany State versus Morehouse. Morehouse just lost to Howard in excruciating 19-65. Not to say that's the best thing. I don't think this is Morehouse's game, though. How do you feel, Randall?
So here's the thing. So I do the SIC spaces with my guys, with the SIC graduates on Twitter spaces, and we just talk about what's going on in the SIC, and we did game picks on Sunday. So we're doing the picks. And I was like Albany State, Albany State's going to win this game. And of course, I still stand on that. They said Morehouse. So it's not like it's definitive that everybody thinks Albany State's going to win because Coach Gabe Gardena ain't walked through that door. He had Charleston Southern scoring 14 points on Clemson. You know what I'm saying? Like making that seat high for Dabo Swinney. So Coach Gardena gone to Charleston Southern. So Coach Quinn Gray, he has some things to clear up. He has things to clear up with that offense before they really get, knee deep into really truly competing. This is, going to be their first matchup. They played Albany State played Wingate and lost. They played Valdosta, played better against Valdosta, and they lost. This is going to be their first in-conference game, and it's going to count against their in-conference record. So I think Albany State wins this game. They've been traditionally good against Morehouse, but I think that it wouldn't be far-fetched if Morehouse won, because Morehouse, they got to get a win at some point. I see some bright spots for them. It just didn't look like it against Howard, especially, and not Union either. But I think Albany State's going to win this game. And I want to just say it is crazy, talking about rivalries. It is crazy when a Fort Valley State University alumni believes in Albany State more than the prognosticators. I believe in Albany State. I believe they're going to win this game, just like the Fountain City Classic. Okay.
On to some of the teams that have been on our radar as of recently, including last year. Lane versus Benedict. We talk about Benedict a lot, but Lane has been looking kind of good. Who we got?
Benedict has this easy. Do you know that they played 2 games? They played against Shaw, played against Edward Waters. No touchdowns. Not even a score. 2 goose eggs. The defense is like that. Coach Barry, they were talking about Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is a great motivator. He's a great talker. He is great. Megachurch pastor. But Coach Barry can run a competing megachurch. Okay? He's motivational as well. Like Coach Barry can make you run up a wall like you Spider-Man out there. I'm telling you, he will motivate you. Like 1-0. 1-0. He says we ain't thinking about the end of the season. We ain't thinking about the championship. 1-0. We taking it 1 week at a time. They're gonna go 1-0 again, and it's gonna be 1-0, and Lane gonna get 0 for no points, like 0. Like Benedict is gonna win this game 0 points. Like no touchdowns, no field goals. Listen, Benedict might not let no one score a touchdown or a field goal till they play Fort Valley. Then they're gonna allow a lot. They're gonna allow a lot. Fort Valley gonna score some touchdowns. We're gonna score some field goals. You know what I'm saying, on ESPN too. But for right now, 1-0. Benedict gonna win this game.
Well, speaking of both of those teams, for our last picks, we have your alma mater, Fort Valley State, versus Edward Waters. I know you're an alum. This might be your team, but we're also not biased, and we keep it truthful over here. So who we got?
Fort Valley is going to win this game, but here's my thing with Fort Valley. My thing with Fort Valley is that I don't like how we do in clutch game situations. I brought this up in the SIC space I was in. You look at the game against Allen last year, early in the season. Allen takes the lead. We got to come back and win. Look at that Savannah State game. We were leading. Then Savannah State got the lead. We couldn't win. Look at that Tuskegee game. Both teams looked good. Fort Valley looked competitive. Kelvin Durham got injured. And then we had a chance to win. We had multiple opportunities to win. Durham got us in that red zone. And we could not convert. Tuskegee wins 37-31 in the Red Tails Classic. Then Clark Atlanta, who honestly, as what we've seen right now, the evidence that we have is not that great of a team right now. And Clark Atlanta was tied going into halftime with us until we sort of took off in that second half. So like how the offense starts so slow. The offense starts slow for Fort Valley, although we have an amazing quarterback. And then crunch time situations. Sometimes Kelvin Durham wants to be a superhero. Like I'm like, don't be a superhero. Be Tom Brady. Like just get that ball down the field. Like if there's a deep throw that deep throw. But short passes, get us down the field. Get us a higher percentage opportunity to score. That's really what I want for Kelvin Durham. Now he knows more football than me. He's the star quarterback. He's the preseason offensive player of the year for the SWAC. So he knows more football than me. But just as a fan, as an alumni that's supporting this team, I'm not saying, Fort Valley's going to win. Like Fort Valley is going to win, but I don't think that if they don't shore up the offense to start the game, and if it's a close game, how they handle the close game situations, Edward Waters can come in and sneak them. But Fort Valley is going to win. I'm just nervous at what I've been seeing. But the defensive line, Arielle, for Fort Valley, it's like that. That's what. Did you notice no FCS team scheduled with us? Okay, defensive line. They don't do that defensive line, Arielle. I'm telling you, defensive line something else. You know what I'm saying? Defensive line. Alabama State scheduled us. It looked just like an NFL team. Like man, they don't think they play an NFL team playing against Fort Valley with a defensive line. So listen, defensive line is as advertised. So if Fort Valley falls to the defensive line, we're gonna be all right.
Hey, y'all heard it here first. Gave you the breakdown, the rundown, the post game, the pregame. We know who's winning next week, and then we got a little bit of SWAC competition versus some non-HBCU D2 teams. Delta State versus Mississippi Valley State. I'm a little fond of Mississippi Valley State, but I'm not so sure about this matchup. How are you feeling?
Delta State's winning this game. Delta State, they won last year. Like Delta, see, here's the thing, and we about to go in a second. Here's the thing that people don't realize. Delta State played Jackson State in the fall 2021 season. Shedeur Sanders, the Heisman contender, right now the number 3 pick in the NFL draft. I'm bringing them up for a reason. Delta State was going back and forth with Jackson State. Shedeur got hurt in that game and had to leave. Jackson State ends up winning. So as long as I think, you lost to a D2 team, Delta State is one of our better teams. And then Patrick Shegall, we talked about him last year, is that guy. He was going tit for tat with Shedeur back in 2021. Of course, Shedeur is better now. He's gotten better. But Patrick Shegall can be an FCS quarterback. Patrick Shegall can possibly be an FBS quarterback. He leads a high-powered offense for Delta State. So if Patrick Shegall is playing and the game is like that and they open up that playbook, I'm sorry. Like Mississippi Valley's going to lose to another D2 team and it ain't going to be an HBCU. So it's even worse. Okay? So I'm just saying. So Delta State, they're going to win that game. They're going to air that ball out and they have a propensity to beat Mississippi Valley. So just saying.
This is one of the games that we kind of question. We kind of see where we fall, but this can also be a potentially good matchup as we've seen with Miles and Alabama State. Florida A&M versus the University of West Florida. Who are you picking?
My. Oh my God.
Go ahead, Johnny Gill. Go ahead. Who are you picking? Who looking good tonight? Who is looking good, Randall?
I'm gonna pick Florida A&M. Like the teams I root for, like I root for FAMU and FCS. Like FAMU, like Fort Valley is like my HBCU. Like it was my school. I wanted to go to Fort Valley since 7th grade. But FAMU honestly was my dream school. So there's a lot of like reverence that I have for FAMU, and I root for FAMU. But West Florida, if they underestimate West Florida, I'm telling you, it could get ugly. West Florida is a Division II contender. And I think that what this game does, FAMU wins this game, but what this game does, we saw against Albany State. Albany State competed well against FAMU last year, and this team is better than last year. But what we're going to see is that possibly that gap is not as wide, because what you're seeing is a University of West Florida team that admittedly, even though Benedict was really great last year, Virginia Union was really great last year, Fort Valley, Albany, we had some great teams. Tuskegee was really great last year. I think that if we're looking at last year's University of West Florida team that made it to that Final Four, to make it to, the Division National Championship, they made it there. Like they were the Final Four teams. They're better than the D2 HBCUs, at least from last year. They're better. If they played Florida, they would have beat us. If they played Benedict, they would have beat us. They beat Delta State. They beat Wingate. Wingate beat Benedict and Virginia Union. So for me, this ain't your typical team. And they have a proficient offense. They have a high-powered offense. They can air that ball out. They can throw that ball. They have a really good defense. I'm picking FAMU, but these folks are like, it's a D2. Oh, we'll be done by halftime. No. Okay. All right. Watch the halftime. Gonna be crying when they up 14-0. Don't underestimate them. Don't underestimate them. These folks be playing Arielle. FAMU gonna win, and they blow them out. Cool. FAMU is great this year. No argument from me. I'm a FAMU fan. I'm all about to say we. We gonna win. You know what I'm saying? That's how big of a fan I am with FAMU. We gonna win. But at the same time, I'm telling you, y'all gotta start sleeping on these D2 teams, and y'all better hope that West Florida don't show y'all something. Just saying.
Listen, Florida A&M, you have my vote, but take the advice that Miles College sent to Alabama State. Don't ever underestimate a D2 team. I think we have our picks, Randall. I don't think they're too bad.
I don't think they are either. I think some of the teams are going to disappoint us, though. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have a losing record next week.
This ain't been the first time we've been disappointed. It definitely hasn't been my first. So hey, it is what it is.
I mean, listen. We like at the end of the day, we do root for the Falcons. So like I'm just saying.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to jinx it. It was pretty good winning this Sunday, but it's against Bryce Young. He's a rookie. Didn't do too bad besides his interceptions. But listen, Once you get past that, Ritter got past his. He's still having some difficulties, just a little bit to me. I'm not so confident in our QB1 pick, but you know, it is what it is. We're gonna ride with it. Listen, at least we're not the Cowboys and the Giants down here. I will never go down in history that disrespectful of a game. Never gonna do that. We ain't never allowed that. We ain't never gonna do that.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like that was crazy. But listen, Arielle, this was a great show. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Instagram at __.martindayari, or put me in the hot seat on Twitter at @AskRiri__. Twitter, X, the new thing that Elon Musk is just trying to invent. Or you can follow me on my website at theunexedopinion.weebly.com.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.